She was breathing, but barely. Her tiny hand was cold. Her black father begged for help, but the nurse just folded her arms and said, "Wait your turn." 10 minutes later, the girl stopped moving, and in that silence, something happened that no one saw coming. It was a cold, rainy evening when Marlon burst through the sliding doors of St. Hope General Hospital, soaked to the bone, clutching his 7-year-old daughter tightly in his arms. His feet were bare, covered in mud. His hands trembled as he held her close, shielding her from the storm outside. Amira's tiny frame lay limp against his chest, her lips tinged blue, her skin burning with fever. Her eyes were half closed, barely blinking. Panic filled Marlon's face as he rushed toward the front desk, his voice hoarse with desperation. "Please, someone help. My daughter. She's not breathing right." But instead of alarm or compassion, the nurse behind the desk leaned back slowly, giving him a long, cold stare. Her eyes scanned his soaking clothes, his dark skin, his heavy breathing. Without lifting a hand or calling for help, she muttered, "You need to wait outside. We're full." The words hit like ice. Marlon's jaw dropped. "Please, I'm begging you, just check her. She's burning up." He fell to his knees on the tiled floor, soaked and shaking, tears falling freely. But the nurse didn't flinch. Instead, she turned to a nearby coworker and said under her breath, "They always come in like this. No papers, no insurance, just noise." The fluorescent lights above flickered. People walked past, but no one stopped. And all the while, Amira's breath slowed, her little body slipping deeper into silence. Marlon stayed on his knees, clutching his daughter like she was the last piece of his soul. His voice cracked as he pleaded, "Please, just take her. Check her pulse. She's still breathing, please." His tears fell onto her cheeks, mixing with the rainwater still dripping from her curls. But the nurse, Linda, didn't move. She crossed her arms and looked away, as if the scene unfolding in front of her was just another inconvenience. "Sir, you're holding up the line," she snapped, not even glancing at the girl whose chest was rising in slow, uneven gasps. Marlon looked around in panic. People were watching, but no one stepped in. It was as if fear, or apathy, had glued them to the floor. The hallway echoed with silence and distant beeping monitors, yet no one made a sound for Amira. Then came the whisper, cold, careless, from Linda's lips to her colleague. "Why do they always do this? Come in here like we owe them something." That was the moment another nurse, a younger woman with tired eyes but a soft heart, heard the desperation. She rushed forward, grabbing Amira gently from Marlon's arms. "This child is in distress," she yelled, eyes wide as she cradled the girl. "Get a doctor now." The hospital came alive suddenly. Alarms rang, stretchers rolled, and white coats darted through corridors. But as they disappeared with Amira behind double doors, Marlon stood frozen. He had done everything right, and still, his daughter had almost died waiting for someone to care. Behind the heavy double doors, the doctors worked quickly, hooking Amira to machines, checking vitals, administering emergency treatment. Marlon wasn't allowed in, but he stood just outside the glass, staring in like a ghost. His hands pressed against the cold surface. His heart raced with every beep, every shout. Minutes felt like hours. His daughter, who had been laughing just 2 days ago, now lay still, surrounded by wires and blinking monitors. Then came the moment he feared most, silence. The frantic noise of the room dulled, and one of the doctors slowly turned toward the hallway. The doors opened, and a tall woman in a white coat walked out with tired eyes and quiet steps. "Mr. Marlowe," she said gently, "your daughter is alive, but she's in a coma." The words hit him like a train. He blinked, unable to breathe. "A coma," he whispered. "Why? How?" The doctor explained it was a rare condition, neurosleep syndrome, seen in only a handful of children worldwide. Her brain had shut down almost completely to protect itself from fever and stress. She could be unconscious for days or years. No one could say for sure. Marlon staggered back, nearly collapsing. "But she was just playing. She was fine," he murmured. The doctor placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's stable now, but it's going to be a long road." And just like that, Marlon's world shrank into a quiet hospital room, with a sleeping daughter, a chair by her bedside, and the haunting sound of what could have been avoided if someone had just helped sooner. Marlon didn't leave the hospital that night, or the night after. He pulled a chair close to Amira's bedside and sat there, silent, broken, holding her tiny hand. Her skin was warm, but her face looked peaceful, almost like she was just taking a nap. Machines hummed softly in the background, tracking her every heartbeat, every shallow breath. The doctors said she was in a deep sleep, a coma unlike any they'd seen in years. "We just have to wait," they said. But they couldn't say for how long. Marlon became a fixture on the floor. He ate from vending machines, showered in the hospital bathroom, and rarely changed clothes. He whispered stories to Amira, read her favorite books, and played soft lullabies on his phone, hoping something, anything, might reach her. But day after day, she didn't move. The staff began to look at him with quiet sympathy. Some offered coffee. Others avoided eye contact. But Nurse Linda? She still walked past him with that same cold stare, her eyes filled with silent judgment. She never apologized, never acknowledged the night she turned them away. In her eyes, Marlon was just another desperate man taking up space. But what she didn't know was that Amira could still hear. Inside that quiet sleep, her mind was listening. She remembered the sound of her father's voice. She remembered the nurse's words. And though she couldn't move, her heart was awake. Nurse Linda had worked at St. Hope General for over 15 years. She was sharp, fast, and professional, but only when it suited her. To her superiors, she was efficient. To the wealthy patients, she smiled, remembered birthdays, and brought extra pillows. But to people like Marlon, those without fancy insurance, those who didn't speak with polished words, or who didn't look like they belonged in marble hallways, she gave nothing but cold stares and clipped words. Some of the junior nurses whispered about her behind closed doors. They noticed how she sighed louder when patients were black, how she rolled her eyes when families cried too loudly. But no one said anything. After all, Linda knew the system. She knew the rules. And most importantly, she knew how to hide behind them. She wasn't openly cruel, just quietly dismissive, just indifferent. And indifference can be deadly. Marlon noticed it too. The way she avoided his gaze. The way she walked past his daughter's room without even glancing in. She had already written Amira off. A lost cause. A waste of time. But what Linda didn't realize is that the girl she ignored, the father she overlooked, and the story she tried to erase wasn't over yet. And soon, the hospital would remember everything she wanted them to forget. Weeks turned into months. The calendar on the wall changed, but inside room 204, time stood still. Marlon still sat by Amira's bedside every day, eyes tired, beard grown, voice softer now. He spoke to her as if she could answer, as if she were simply too shy to speak. Most doctors grew distant over time. They had other patients, other priorities. But one person noticed Marlon's quiet routine. A young doctor named Elena, new to the hospital, with gentle hands and curious eyes. She'd often pass by and pause at the door, watching the way Marlon spoke to his daughter with such tenderness, as if his words were magic spells meant to bring her back. One evening, she finally stepped inside. "Mind if I sit?" she asked softly. Marlon nodded, surprised by the kindness. She read Amira's file for hours. Then she turned to him and said, "Her brain is responding. It's faint, but it's there. I believe she hears you." It was the first time in months someone had given him hope. Real hope. Tears welled up in Marlon's eyes, and for the first time in a long while, he smiled. That night, as the hospital lights dimmed and silence filled the halls, Marlon leaned in close to Amira and whispered, "You'll wake up, baby. And when you do, the world will see who you really are." Outside the room, Dr. Elena watched with quiet faith. What she didn't know was that Amira, still trapped in stillness, felt something stirred deep inside, like a light, flickering in the dark. 6 long months passed. Outside the hospital, life moved on. Children played in parks. Holidays came and went. But inside room 204, the world was still paused. Marlon remained a silent guardian, a man whose life now existed between 4 white walls, a chair, and the rhythmic beeping of machines. His clothes were faded, his shoulders thinner, but his voice never stopped. Every day, he whispered to Amira, songs from her childhood, stories about her mother, promises that she was loved beyond measure. Some nurses called it hopeless. Others pitied him. But Dr. Elena kept checking Amira's scans, reading her brain activity, and noticing something strange, faint spikes, flickers of consciousness, a shadow of awareness. "She's still in there," she said one morning, tapping the screen with wide eyes. She's trying to come back. No one believed her, except Marlon. And then, one quiet morning in spring, something happened. The sun poured gently through the window, and for the first time since that terrible night, Amira's eyelids twitched. Just once. Then again. Slowly, shakily, they opened. Her eyes, big, brown, and full of light, gazed up at the ceiling. The heart monitor beeped faster. A gasp escaped her lips. A nurse screamed for help. Doctors rushed in. Marlon stood frozen. Then Amira whispered, barely audible, "Daddy?" That one word shattered the silence of 6 months. Marlon collapsed to his knees, crying into his hands, while staff around him watched in stunned silence. The girl everyone gave up on had just opened her eyes. The room filled with stunned silence as Amira's tiny voice cut through the stillness. "Daddy." It was no louder than a whisper, but to Marlon, it thundered like a miracle. He rushed to her bedside, trembling, barely able to believe what he was seeing. Her eyes blinked slowly as if the light was too bright. Her little fingers twitched, then reached weakly for his hand. He took it gently, placing it against his cheek, tears falling freely down his face. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He just knelt beside her and wept. Doctors surrounded them, checking vitals, adjusting machines, but nothing else in that room mattered. Just a father and his daughter, reunited after half a year of silence. Dr. Elena entered, eyes wide with joy and disbelief. She had hoped, but even she hadn't expected this. Amira's voice was raspy, her body frail, but she was awake. Alive. Present. The girl they called a hopeless case had returned. Slowly, over the next days, Amira began to speak more. She smiled faintly. She whispered things she remembered, songs her dad sang, words he spoke, even sounds in the hallway. But one thing she repeated, over and over, almost in a daze. The mean nurse, she told Daddy to leave. Her memory was intact. Everything had been recorded in the quiet corners of her mind. And soon, those quiet truths would speak louder than anyone imagined. 2 months later, St. Hope General Hospital hosted a ceremony in its main hall, an event no one had expected. Invitations had been sent across departments. Staff gathered in polished uniforms. A new member was being welcomed to the hospital's board of ethics, someone with a powerful story and a fresh vision for change. Whispers floated through the crowd about who this person might be. Some thought it would be a government official. Others guessed a wealthy donor. But when the doors finally opened, all eyes turned toward the stage, then widened in shock. Walking in slowly, supported by her father, was Amira. Healthier now. Stronger. Her tiny steps carried weight. Her presence was electric. And beside her stood Marlon, not in worn-out clothes this time, but in a tailored suit. Calm. Composed. A man no one truly knew, until now. Murmurs filled the room. That's when the hospital director stepped forward and announced, "Please welcome Dr. Marlon Marlowe, medical researcher, and his daughter Amira, survivor, and our newest honorary ambassador for patient rights." A stunned silence took over. All at once, people realized Marlon wasn't just a desperate father. He was a brilliant mind who had once worked on pediatric sleep disorders before stepping away after his wife passed. He had chosen not to use his title. He didn't demand respect. He asked for basic human decency and was denied. And now, the very hospital that had turned him away was honoring him. As Amira stood on the stage, holding her father's hand, the entire room was silent. No claps, no whispers, just breathless attention. Then, slowly, she stepped forward to the podium. The microphone stood tall in front of her small frame, but her voice, though soft, carried a force that filled every corner of the hall. "I was asleep for 6 months," she began, her eyes scanning the crowd. "But I heard everything." A ripple of murmurs ran through the audience. Amira's gaze rested for a moment on someone near the front, Nurse Linda, frozen in her seat. Amira continued, "I heard my daddy cry. I heard the songs he sang. I heard the beeping, the footsteps, and the words someone said when we first came in." Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't stop. Someone said, "We're full. Wait outside." A hush fell. Linda's face paled. Her hands trembled in her lap. Amira didn't call her out by name. She didn't have to. "I'm not angry," the little girl said gently. "But I want to say this. Everyone matters. Even if they don't have money. Even if they look different. even if they come in scared and barefoot in the rain. She turned to her father and smiled. I woke up because he never stopped talking to me. He believed in me, even when others didn't. Her words sank deep, not just into ears, but into hearts. And as she stepped back, holding her father's hand again, the room remained still, because truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers, and shakes the world anyway. After the ceremony, the hospital returned to its usual rhythm, but something had changed. Whispers followed Nurse Linda through the halls now, not out of fear or respect, but out of silence. No one said anything to her directly. There were no loud confrontations, no angry mobs. Just quiet glances, uneasy pauses. And then, a letter. One crisp, white envelope sitting in her staff locker. No return address. Just 2 words. Administrative review. Within a week, Linda was gone. No announcements. No farewell lunch. Just an empty desk and a nameplate quietly removed. Some say she was transferred. Others say she was asked to resign. But in truth, she wasn't fired because of Amira's speech alone. She was removed because the truth had finally spoken louder than the silence. Marlon never said a word to her. He didn't need to. And Amira? She never looked back. Because justice didn't come in shouts or slams. It came quietly. With open eyes. With a steady voice. And with a sleeping child who had finally woken up. From that day forward, St. Hope General began to change. New training was introduced. Patient rights were reviewed. A photo of Amira, smiling beside her father, now hangs on the wall in the pediatric wing. Below it, a small plaque reads, "Every voice matters. Every life counts, especially when no one's watching." Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that reveal hard truths, uplift hearts, and remind us of the strength in standing together.